education reform.
Good afternoon, everybody. I used to be Jeb Bush. It's great to be here. Thank you all so much for coming. Marco, thanks for making it from Miami. It took me 7 hours yesterday to make it. I should have come with you maybe. It only took you 3. But Marco served as Speaker of the House for those that are coming from other parts of the country. He was one of the youngest speakers, if not the youngest, the first Cuban-American Speaker of the Florida House. At the age of 36 or 37 now, he's been term limited out. Can you imagine that? I feel like his uncle or something, and he's already finished his at least first phase of his public service career. He did a spectacular job, and he can speak much more eloquently about these issues than I could ever imagine doing. But it is a joy to see him grow and to evolve and to become a true leader. So, Marco, thank you for coming. I want to thank everybody that's here from all over the country. I want to particularly thank the James Madison Institute as our co-sponsor, the generous sponsors and partners that have forked out some money to make this event a success. We have some fantastic panelists that you'll be able to hear from, true leaders nationally on education reform, on a whole wide range of subjects. And we have some fantastic speakers, one of which you'll hear from in about 5 minutes. But Mayor Bloomberg is coming tomorrow. I saw Joel Klein already here, who's the fantastic superintendent of the New York school system. Joel has done a great job. Joel's school system, by the way, obviously the largest in the country, is larger than 3/4 of the state student populations in the country. And many of the exciting reforms we'll talk about are being implemented or trying to be implemented in New York City. So Joel, thank you for being here. State Senator Anthony Williams from Philadelphia will be our breakfast speaker tomorrow. John Stossel is speaking tonight. If you've not heard him speak about the sense of urgency we need to reform our education system, I think you'll be impressed. And of course, at least in my book, the best speaker will be my mother tomorrow night. So we welcome you for this conference, and we thank you for being here. I also want to recognize the teachers and the education leaders, many of whom are from Florida that are here. We appreciate everything you do in this critically important part of life. Lynn, where's Lynn Stanfield? I don't know where she is, but I'm going to do something that she might appreciate. Since I've been finished as governor for the last year and a half, I've actually had to work for a living, and I do a lot of my work around the world. And as you look, keep your head up, you notice that the world is moving a lot faster now. It is moving at warp speed, really. That the world is much more interconnected. It is much more technologically advanced, and it is much more interdependent. And because of this revolution that's taking place, it's things that we never could have imagined just a decade ago are occurring with great regularity. In fact, last week I was making a presentation on my 3 gigabyte Nano, if you can believe it. And there's Lynn. I know I could get her. I made a presentation on this thing. I can barely see it. I'm so old. See the video, but the person that I was making the presentation to understood it completely, appreciated it a lot. It made the conversation afterwards a lot more robust. That's the world we live in. It is much more productive, much more exciting, much more perilous than the world of just a decade ago. And yet our education system is an 8-track system living in an iPod world. And so the question is, how do we change the system in a way that liberates the teachers and the great leaders in our education system so that we have more student learning, more exhilarated, more excited students that continue to pursue knowledge on a lifelong basis so that the United States will be competitive, that we deal with the huge social problems that exist because of education in our country today that are only going to grow, where the haves and have-not are going to not be based on race or ethnicity. They're going to be based on whether young people acquire the power that comes from being able to acquire knowledge. That's the great challenge. I think it is the great social challenge, the great economic challenge of our times. And this group, hopefully over the next day and a half, will be able to talk about ideas and develop strategies to help great policymakers and great leaders across our state that have the courage to change things, to give them the tools to do so. One of those people that has been on the front lines of education reform and education progress is Margaret Spellings. Margaret has been an advisor to a pretty darn good governor in Texas. In fact, developed the reforms that were record-breaking, precedent-breaking in the country in the 1990s. And Texas benefited tremendously, and the achievement gap that was very large in Texas had begun to decline because of these reforms that she and Governor Bush worked on in the 1990s. The president was lucky to have her make the move. For a Texan, it's hard to move anywhere, and to move to Washington, D.C. must have been a very traumatic experience. But Margaret made the great leap, and thankfully for President Bush, she did that. She was the assistant to the president for domestic policy, where she crafted, along with a lot of other people, but she was the leader of the crafting of the No Child Left Behind legislation that probably, when people look back on it, will be recognized as the most provocative, important piece of education legislation in the last generation of time. And we thank you for that, Margaret. And Florida, at least, I don't know if the rest of the country thanks you, but we've embraced the No Child Left Behind accountability measures. And with passion and conviction, people are excited about embracing those ideas to improve student learning. And now as Secretary of Education, in fact, the first mom of students going to school that has presided as Secretary of Education, not only has Secretary Spellings continued to implement the No Child Left Behind provisions in a way that provides flexibility but still maintains accountability for our country, but she's also taken this zeal for reform into other areas like higher education, focusing on increasing standards for math and science. And so apart from all that, she's a great person, she's funny as all get out, and she's a great friend. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you all Secretary of Department of Education, Margaret Spellings.
Jabby, that was sweet. That was so nice. I'll see you in a second. That was so nice. Thank you, Jebby, as he's called in the Bush family. It's great to be here, and it's especially fun to be here with so many fellow warriors and friendly faces, so I'm thrilled to be here.